Hi everyone, my name is Catherine and I work in the crisis unit of Engel Zimmermann. Today I'm going to talk to Steve, and Steve is strategic partner at Alder, which is a consultancy for crisis PR and reputation management set in the UK. And together with 9 other specialist consultancies in crisis communications, Engel Zimmermann and Alder have joined forces at the Crisis Communications Network Europe, the CCNE. And by doing this, we want to, support our clients in global crises. Steve and I are going to talk about a very current issue today about the interview of Meghan and Harry on Oprah. And there are very different opinions about the crisis communications of Buckingham Palace on this interview. And what we'll show you today is what you can take away for your corporate crisis communications from this interview and from the communication from Buckingham Palace. So, Steve, hi, and I'm very interested how you assess the crisis communications.
Yeah, well, I think firstly, the palace in particular were put in an extremely difficult position. I think what made it really difficult for them was the fact that the mental health issues and the allegations of racism were clearly unexpected. There was pages and pages of media coverage in the days leading up to it. That aspect was never mentioned, and I think those two topics in particular can be really toxic if they're not handled correctly. And the palace resisted the temptation to be sucked into that, and I think that was wise. I think engaging in a detailed rebuttal wasn't the right thing to do. But at the same time, in their statement, they did acknowledge the seriousness of the allegations without actually going into the fine detail of it. Well, I thought the statement, even though it was only 61 words long, was quite smart, was the use of the phrase, while some recollections may vary, which is really just a polite way of saying, don't necessarily believe everything you've been told in this interview. And I think that just cast a small element of doubt, and frankly, depending on your disposition, you may have an even more extreme interpretation about what the palace meant by that. So that was quite smart, and it was, I say, very understated, and I personally quite like that. So that, I think, that element of doubt helped. There was some criticism about the speed of the statement. I think when this story has run its course, I don't think there'll be that much concern about the slow response, but because this was clearly going to go beyond the 24-hour news cycle, and it certainly has done. And I think no one's going to be over-exercised about the timing itself.
Okay, so concerning the timing and the content of the statement, do you think there is a certain strategy behind it?
I think the strategy would be certainly to try and close the story down. Now, that's wishful thinking, as we've seen. But I think certainly they would be looking not to exacerbate what was already a highly charged emotional situation by introducing any fresh conflict, any fresh controversy. And the overarching message is that it's a family matter and it'll be sorted out in private.
Okay, regarding family matters, could you detect a change of the communication of the royal family and of Buckingham Palace? In crisis situations during the last decades, was there a kind of change?
I think the watchword of the royal family in years gone by was always never complain, never explain. And although it was frustrating to the public and certainly the media, it was accepted, and it actually proved to be quite effective over time. And if anything, it added to the mystique of the royal family, and the public could rarely be sure which stories were true and which weren't, frankly. But I think over the last 20 years, and probably since the death of Princess Diana, it's changed sort of incrementally, but certainly there was a time, if you go back to probably the 80s and 90s, a crisis such as this would have probably elicited no comment at all. So they have moved on.
Right. And if we'd have to find some key takeaways for corporate crisis communications, what would those be?
Um, I think sometimes it's less is more, and in personal disputes, um, they're almost certainly never resolved in the media. The temptation can be to retaliate, um, uh, and retaliate strongly, but invariably a more restrained response is more effective. It's always best to take a step back. To take a step back and think what the long-term objective is, and what sort of outcome you really want.
Right, and what will be this? What this long-term outcome will be? We will probably have to wait a bit and see for the next few weeks what the press coverage will be, and if there'll be another statement or another statement by Harry and Meghan. Thank you very much, Steve, for these insights from the UK, from the place of the action, so to
Okay,
speak.
you're very welcome.